What's up, everybody? It's Q Robinson here, and you're watching Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where a band of dreamers took a strip of beach and turned it into a proving ground. The Great American Race, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover today with you from my home studio here in Birmingham during what is a very busy week of Alabama athletics as we're starting to get truly into the crossover season between Alabama football, men's and women's basketball, soccer and volleyball in full swing as well. We have a lot to get to on today's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll start the show by taking a look at our headlines thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. Let's see what's coming up on the show today. We will start by taking a look back to last night, opening night of Alabama basketball. We'll see our courtside cam highlights with Chris Stewart and Brian Passink for Alabama's thrilling win against UNC Asheville to begin the season. And then we'll hear from Chris Stewart himself. He'll join us to talk about not only Alabama basketball, but football as well as we get ready for Alabama against LSU. Our final interview will focus solely on football with Cory Reamer, our Alabama legend of the week. He and I didn't have a chance to catch up with Crimson Tide Rewind last night due to basketball, so we've got a one-on-one conversation with Cory Reamer to round out our show. Looking at the Crimson Tide football team Saturday at LSU, 6:30 will be the start time. Our radio start time will be 3:30 across the network in what is a pivotal game. Both teams with 2 losses on the year, and one more loss likely knocks that team out of the race for the 12-team college football playoffs. So much on the line coming up for Saturday's game between Alabama and LSU. Great news earlier in the week for Jahad Campbell as well as Deontay Lawson. They have been named as semifinalists for the Butkus Award to the nation's best linebacker. We also do know the Mercer kickoff will be set for 1 p.m. coming up next week. That'll be the next home game for the Crimson Tide. So we'll hit the radio coming up at 10 a.m. for that broadcast of Alabama against Mercer. To the hardwood to Coleman Coliseum. What a crowd we had for both women's and men's basketball last night in the doubleheader. The women's team got it going with a strong showing, 115-53 over New Orleans. Aaliyah Nye led the way with 25 points, knocked down 7 3-pointers in the game, but also 20-plus points by Sarah Ashley Barker. Great performance by her. How about Eris Lester as well, scoring double figures? Zay Green, the new point guard, really fit in well with this team. We've had her join us on this show before. Again, all around great showing offensively, defensively for Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide. She set the bar pretty high with those 115 points. The men's team nearly got there against UNC Asheville, but great performance against UNC Asheville. 110-54 was the final score. Mark Sears, no surprise, top scorer for the Crimson Tide with 20 points. Aiden Sherrill picked up the hard hat as the blue-collar player of the game as well. Just a fun start to the season for both programs last night, and when we talk again on Thursday's show, we'll preview what's coming up on a busy Thursday and Friday for women's and men's basketball teams here at Alabama. Busy time for the Crimson Tide soccer team in the SEC tournament down in beautiful Pensacola, Florida. On Sunday, it was a strong win, 2-1 the final score against Vanderbilt. A great upset victory for the Crimson Tide in that matchup as Alabama got goals from Nadia Ramadan and Z Labovich to move on to the quarterfinals tonight against a very good South Carolina team that defeated the Crimson Tide earlier this season, but that was on their home pitch in Columbia, South Carolina. Now tonight, neutral site Alabama hoping to make it back to the semifinals of the SEC tournament. Volleyball team fell on Sunday to LSU. 3-1 was the final score as they continue what's a long stretch away from Tuscaloosa and playing on the road. Meanwhile, cross country, the SEC championships wrapped up for that last week, and 14 Crimson Tide student athletes on both the men's and women's side picked up all SEC honors, so a great way to close out cross country season, at least in SEC competition.
Asheville wearing black, Bama the home white, and we're underway as it's stripped by Phylon, ahead to Reed, and Darian will get his first points in a Bama uniform with a flush. Defense leading to offense, leaves it for the trailer Sears, dribbles to his right, off of the screen, spots up 3. And Mark Sears is indeed back. Mo will flip it back to Aiden. Left alone for three. Bottom. Man, he looks good in that uniform. Reitzel on the wing. Stops, pops, drops. Bama gets it and runs the other way. 4-on-2. Phylon to the rack. Lays it in.
He wanted to pass that.
And then he stole it on the inbounds. Puts it up. Got fouled, and he'll go to the line to shoot a pair.
What a play by Phylon. The defensive play, but also able to finish. He hung in the air. I think he wanted to pass it to a teammate, Darian Reed, who was running the lane. But the defense went to Reed. Phylon hung in the air and able to finish with a soft touch. Gets it back defensively, and the crowd showing their appreciation for the freshman's hustle.
Jaron Stevenson back in the game, driving to the rack and whipping it down. They left him alone, and that was a mistake. Takes it left side, goes now down the lane, gives it off to Amori. He'll pick it up, feeds it back to Holloway. Left alone, tries a three, bottom.
He loves the freedom that Nate Oates gives him offensively.
No good. Rebounded though, Diabate. Great pass to Amori for the flush.
When you got Mo Diabate and Cliff Amori in the game, nobody else is getting rebounds. Those guys get on the glass.
Phylon blocks the three attempt from AB. Gives it off to Amori. Back now to Phylon to Amori for the flush. Well, two new teammates, but they have learned each other quickly.
Cliff Amori, 6'11", but a 7'6" wingspan. Went up, got it, and threw it down.
Here's Phylon with the basketball, dribbling right wing, going baseline, steps through, kicks it out to Sears. All alone, three, and that is as close to automatic as you will find.
Beautiful pass by LeBaron Phylon.
Reitzel gives it off to Sears. Right corner, three, bottom. Fires it into the corner, around the horn. Bama works it. Mo Diabate for three. Wide open, makes the hard work pay off. Knocking home the bank first three.
Beautiful offense by Alabama. The extra pass, and then the extra pass. Mo Diabate wide open.
Mark Sears brings it ahead with 8:34 to go. Throws the lob in the flush for the Big Red Dogs. When they're not in foul trouble, playing freely, this bunch is pretty good. I'm glad Bama got to them early. Reitzel playing off of the screen. Let's fly from three, bottom. Phylon in the lane. Look off. Left-handed layup. Good.
Boy, love the effort by Aiden Holloway getting on the deck for a loose ball. Up almost 50 points.
Stevenson to Reed. Deep three, bottom. Tries the three. No good. Rebounded by Max. Flips it ahead to LeBaron. They'll play off the screen, getting it inside. Skarnowski left alone, lays it up and in for two. Nice move, pump fake, got the open look and got the layup. He's just mad he didn't get to dunk it. Phylon on the drive, into the lane, throws the lob in the flush for two by Reed. Dubsky will put it up, he'll miss. Rebounded again by Max, 2 points, 2 boards. He's gonna walk it up, run out the clock, and Alabama's gonna win the opener 110 to 54 and strike up the band. The first Ramma Jam of the year as the Tide wins it 110 to 54 over UNC Asheville.
Experience racing like never before. From the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. From the Courtside Cam highlights, now to Chris Stewart, the voice of the Crimson Tide for men's basketball and football. He joins us as always on our Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, to not only preview Alabama football, head coach in the Kalen DeBoer show, but we'll start the conversation with some basketball as Alabama started the season with a great win last night over the Bulldogs. We always talk football with you, Chris, but now we get to fold men's basketball in as well. It's a special time here at the Capstone. Roll Tide.
At Roll Tide, it is a fun time to be able to talk basketball. You know, number 2 preseason ranking in the national polls, the highest ever. A lot of us think that, frankly, Alabama should have been ranked number 1, and the voters just got down to it and go, all right, we got Kansas and Alabama. this is basketball. We got to put Kansas number one, which I get. If I was sitting in Ohio somewhere, that's probably the way I would do it as well, based on history. But still, it's exciting to see Alabama there and to know that they're worthy of it. And anybody that saw last night's game, understanding that they were not at full strength, but still plenty of strength, would understandably be excited because it was an impressive performance.
Impressive performance, great crowd at Coleman Coliseum for both the women's and the men's game. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
Alabama basketball should be. And again, this team was firing on all cylinders last night. Led the way. Mark Sears, 20 points. Great to see it.
Yeah, 225 combined points between the men and the women. I think in last night's ball game, the women did outscore and out defend because Asheville got all of 54 on the board. And that's a really good team that's going to contend for the Big South title. They have the last couple of years. They did lose the conference player of the year for the last 2 seasons, but they've got some players who, once the game was out of hand, we saw, their skill, their ability, but Alabama just took them out of it. And it was great to see so much depth, so much energy. And that, to me, is the most impressive thing that Nate Oates is able to get out of his teams as we've started season number 6. The fact that he can get stars to play as hard and as tough and as much team basketball as he does, unselfish, still a chance to play and be themselves and their own personality, if you will, their own style, but yet make it in a team concept where they're so unselfish. That is great to see. And even, look, it's impossible to look at Mark Sears and not see improvement. He's going to be what he is offensively, which is as dangerous as anybody in the country. But to see him absolutely in the jersey of the guy that he's guarding and show that step up. Now, I know it again. It's not, even though it's a good opponent, it's not what they're going to face very, very soon. But just from a technique, fundamental energy, effort standpoint, to see the commitment that guy has. And when your best player on a team full of great players, but your best player clearly buys into what the coach is wanting done, it's a great sign of where things can be for this team.
Really special night getting to celebrate Alabama basketball last night, but of course, so much of our focus is on football and getting ready for what's coming up on Saturday in Baton Rouge. It seems like the bye week came at a good time for this football team, and now they get to refocus and get ready for what'll be a very tough test on Saturday.
No doubt, they did need it because it was, pretty tough physically. You're at the time of year where you're worn out, regardless of whether you've had a bye week already, and the Tide did after the first 4 games, and then 4 more, they get another one, but needed it. This was a stretch that basically started off with a tough loss to Tennessee, and then they're able to come back and get a win that they needed, and you go and, look, not just the win, but look good doing it. And I think that was very much needed for this squad. And you get a breather, you get a chance to regroup, heal up, rest up, all that stuff. And, now you've got obviously Mercer at home, but you've got Oklahoma on the road, which that may be for their season, trying to mess things up for Alabama, depending on where things are. And it's Alabama, Oklahoma. It doesn't need a whole lot, especially the first time to meet in conference play as fellow members. So that's going to be special and meaningful in Norman. The Iron Bowl is always the Iron Bowl, and that one in Baton Rouge is always special and tough. And despite the fact that Alabama's had great success over the years in that stadium, it's not like they've done it in a cakewalk fashion. So this is a challenge, a great one. It's, in essence, I think, in all likelihood, a play-in game, or an elimination game is probably a better way to put it, for the playoff. And hopefully, if it doesn't go our way, in a season full already of crazy things, maybe you get on a roll and get a vote to go your way with some other stuff going the wrong way. But it's even better to just take care of business yourself and put yourself, frankly, back in the mix in the conversation for a trip to Atlanta, in addition to a playoff spot. There's a ton of stuff that can happen, and a lot of it's good. So you find a way to get another one in Baton Rouge, then you control things a whole lot better. Certainly from a playoff perspective, I think even the people that dislike the Tide the most would have a logically difficult time, given this schedule, this league, to keep a 2-loss Alabama team out of a playoff. I don't think there's any chance of that happening. But you take destiny out of your own hands if you lose this ball game. But I think it'll be the typical matchup between the Tide and the Tigers that goes to the wire. I do think Alabama showed a lot of things really even in the loss to Tennessee, the last 2 weeks, that gives you a lot of belief in where this team can be, but also where they're trending pretty rapidly as well.
That's what it's all about. Alabama against LSU under the lights at Death Valley coming up on Saturday. We look forward to that. Hey, Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show on Wednesday. Some basketball in between. Chris Stewart, it's going to be a very busy week, but thank you for taking some time with us here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, buddy. Always enjoy it.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Xavier Brown, and this is Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
With all the excitement of basketball last night, we were unable to go to Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. Cory Reamer and I always team up to break down Alabama football games, and there wasn't a game to break down from this past week, but he joins us this week on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, as our Alabama Legend of the Week, plus giving us thoughts on what we've seen to this point for the Crimson Tide and what it's going to take coming up on Saturday for Alabama to get a win against LSU. Here's a conversation with Cory Reamer. Cory Reamer, who joins us now. And Cory, we missed the show last night due to basketball, so we had to have you on Crimson Drive this week. How's everything going? Roll Tide.
Hey, it's going good, man. I enjoyed that basketball game. I think we've got got an exciting season to look forward to. I mean, it was fun to watch. First game of the year, obviously, but it was good. It was good. Ready to get back in the swing. Two off weeks in a season. It's really throwing me off not having the Monday show. My routine's all messed up, but ready to get back into it.
Yeah, we'll certainly get it back next week when we get to talk about Alabama LSU. But right now, it's all about the buildup towards this LSU game. Just a massive matchup we're going to have on Saturday in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it is. And, we've looked back at what this game has meant over the last, decade plus. And usually you've got two top 5 teams, top 10 teams that are really vying for that Western Conference title. It usually comes down to this game late in the season, always played in November. Then Alabama always has that Auburn game towards the end of the season as well that could have a lot of meaning. But this game has really built up to be somewhat of a pretty significant rivalry for a lot of different factors, with Coach Saban being here, going down there for the first time back in 2008. But now we've got a little bit different scenario with college football playoff, 12 teams getting in. Both these teams now have 2 losses, probably unexpected for Alabama for sure, to the losses that we do have. Didn't expect, and then LSU has looked pretty strong. They started out with a loss early in the season, really had things going, ran into Texas A&M a couple weeks ago and took their second loss. Now both seasons are on the line, essentially, in terms of postseason play. The winner from this game's got a pretty good shot of making those top 12 teams, and the loser's really going to have to have a lot of things kind of fall apart for the rest of the season, and they're just going to be sitting on the outside looking in, hoping that somehow the lore of the SEC conference plays into the factors of selections, and some other teams just have to fall off. So you definitely want to be the team that wins this ball game, and you don't have to rely on a lot of other factors to try to make it into this postseason this year.
Even though it was a loss a couple weeks ago to Tennessee, still held the Vols in the 20s, didn't allow any points in the first half of that game, and then blanked Missouri after that. Is this defense starting to round into shape at this time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at that Missouri game with a couple different lenses. It's obviously Missouri, I think, is a team that probably wasn't as good as they were hyped up to be preseason going in to the year being top 10 ranked before the season started. They've got a lot of weapons. They are a good team. Anytime that you blank an SEC team on from a defensive side of the ball, it is a significant accomplishment, especially from what we've seen from this defense a few games so far this season. Brady Cook goes down. He's comes in the game injured, leaves after the second series, and they still got a lot of weapons, but you gotta ride this momentum, even if it is a team that is banged up. You still were able to, with a fourth down stand at the end of the game, keep them out of the end zone. That's a huge momentum builder for this team internally in that locker room. Understanding that you've got the capabilities to go out there and play for an entire 60 minutes and shut an offense that's known for putting points on the board, keeping them off of the scoreboard is a huge accomplishment. It's going to be a little bit tougher test against this LSU offense for sure coming up on Saturday.
It really will. Garrett Mustenmeyer, the quarterback, some dangerous weapons for him. This Crimson Tide team looking towards Alabama's offensive side of the ball started to run the football a little bit more against Missouri. I think all of us like that 271 number we saw in terms of total rushing yards for that game.
Yeah, you want to definitely be able to do that this Saturday when you're in a hostile environment. Putting, we've seen this season kind of ebb and flow. Early on, it was a lot of Jalen Milroe and his legs and his deep play ability, big explosive plays from this offense that really carried us, averaging 40 something plus points a game early on in the year. We kind of saw that tail off, over the last 3 or 4 games. And this running game last week really picked up a lot of slack. You saw Jalen the week before, not have many yards on the ground. I think it was 11 total rushing yards in that game against Tennessee. It's, we need to continue to evolve as an offense to where we can lean on different aspects of this team and not just rely on Jalen Milroe and his deep play ability and his ability to use his legs. But I think what this running game did last week was really opens up. LSU's got to look at this offense in a different light. When you see 270 plus yards of rushing, it changes your game plan up where it's not just let's get after Jalen Milroe. You've got to play the run. And hopefully that opens up some opportunities for Jalen to play action pass, get outside the pocket. We've seen over the last couple of years, sometimes the best offense that we have is when things kind of break down and he uses his feet to extend plays, and it gives our receivers time to get some separation and make some of these big plays downfield. So something that Alabama fans over the course of the last 15 years since we were there, we take pride in running the football because that just means that you're able to dominate the line of scrimmage. And I think that if you can do that, you really can break the hearts of other teams if you're able to do that early on, especially in this type of game at night on the road. So looking forward to seeing us go out there and try to establish that run. We got 2 great running backs that are phenomenal. Now you've got to account for those 2 guys along with Jalen in the backfield. It's tough for a defense to defend against.
Yeah, and for Jalen, he looked a little more explosive against Missouri, more zip on some of his passes. Maybe that bye week came at a perfect time for him to fully be right because he's going to be tested coming up on Saturday.
Oh man, there's no doubt. If anybody remembers all the LSU matchups that we've had, what they've always been known for is having some really explosive guys on the edges on their defense, that guys that can really get after quarterbacks. And this is not going to be any different this year. Got a lot of talent on that side. We've got to really do a great job of protecting him when it is obvious passing down situations. But hopefully, like you said, this bye week gives him an opportunity to get fully healed, where a lot of criticism in terms of watching his mechanics over the last few weeks of how he is throwing the football. A lot of people were, kind of analyzing that, saying there must be something wrong. He's not delivering the football with the same type of zip that he did early in the season. He's not stepping into his throws like he was. and you and I both don't know what exactly is going on. And I doubt that the staff is going to release anything about that, but you can just make assumptions that he wasn't feeling 100%. So hopefully this bye week gives him an opportunity to get in that training room, go see Jeff Allen, get back to 100% as much as you possibly can, because you know that this game's going to be a physical one, and you better be ready to take some hits. And hopefully he can use his legs to escape when there is pressure that does come, because I imagine Brian Kelly and his staff are going to be trying to dial up as much pressure as they possibly can. If anything that's happened in the past is going to continue this game, we know that they're going to try to get after Jalen Milroe with the athletes that they have on that defensive side of the ball. But that opens up opportunities for Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. There's probably going to be some one-on-one coverage opportunities on the edges when you're playing a team like this that does like to bring a little bit of extra heat.
In terms of rivalries, Auburn always special, Tennessee always special. There were periods where Alabama LSU you wouldn't necessarily consider a rivalry, but during your time in Tuscaloosa, it certainly became one, personal on both sides. Just how'd you see this game evolve during your time with Coach Saban after 1 point being at LSU, coming over to the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got to Tuscaloosa, this was when LSU was in their Coach Saban era. This is, coming off of the national championship in 2004. The LSU was easily the high water mark for the conference at that point in time. Go back years before that, LSU had a lot of down years where they weren't really competitive in this league. But ever since the early 2000s, LSU has been the dominant force in the conference. That they recruit well. They've got a good coaching staff. They don't have to go very far. You've got Texas, Louisiana right there that you can pull a lot of athletes from, and Alabama recruits heavily in that area as well. And so there's a lot of implications from this game, but LSU has, 2005, when I first got there, that was a year that we had, been pretty good. We were undefeated going into that game, and we got to LSU, and you look at the guys across that sideline and you're like, this is a different level of athlete. And ever since then, Alabama's been, we caught up to them, and then we've had just a number of great matchups. And I'll never forget that 2008 game going into Baton Rouge, Coach Saban's first visit back after being hired as the head coach at Alabama. The warm welcome party that they threw for him at that point in time, it was a phenomenal game. But that really kind of kicked it off in terms of the next 16 years of this matchup and what it means and how competitive it was. I mean, it was literally a game that always came down to the end. We got the better of them a decent amount of times, but that you're going to be in for a tough matchup just because of the style of football that they play.
It's going to be a special Saturday, Alabama against LSU. Cory, we look forward to breaking it down coming up with you on Monday night. We will return with Crimson Tide Rewind coming up next Monday at Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. Just best of luck with everything going on this week. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Roll Tide.
Hey, appreciate it, Roger. Roll Tide.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com.
Busy time coming up for all of us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network as football and basketball are playing essentially back-to-back throughout the next few weeks. Let's take a look at our upcoming schedule so you can stay connected to the Crimson Tide and the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Coming up tomorrow, we will have a new edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show. Coach DeBoer back at Baumhower's Victory Grill with Chris Stewart. Coming up tomorrow, the show starting at 6 p.m. Central. You can watch on RolledTide.com, the Alabama Athletics social media platforms, in addition to listening on the full radio network. Thursday will be a busy day with Crimson Drive coming back at 2 o'clock, and then the women's basketball team making the road trip to North Alabama to take on Alabama A&M. We'll have radio coverage at 7:30, starting at actually 7:15, but the tip-off of the game at 7:30 for that broadcast, as I'll be joined by Richard Hendricks. He'll be on the call for Alabama women's basketball coming up on Thursday. Friday, we'll have a new episode of Tide TV this week, dropping on all of our TV affiliates as well as RolledTide.com, the Alabama Athletics YouTube page. And then men's basketball will be back in action, taking on Arkansas State. Our good buddy Brian Hodson, a great assistant for Nate Oates, now in his second year as the head coach in Jonesboro, Arkansas. We look forward to that matchup. 6 p.m. will be the start time for our broadcast, leading you up to the 7 p.m. tip-off. Then we'll make our way down to Baton Rouge. It's Alabama against LSU with so much on the line on Saturday. 6:30 the kickoff. Our radio airtime will be at 3:30 from Tiger Stadium on campus at LSU. Chris Stewart will talk about the ball game with Kalen DeBoer for the Kalen DeBoer television show on Sunday to our TV affiliates across the state. And then women's basketball will be back in action coming up on Sunday at 2 p.m. against a very talented Troy team that's usually at the top of the Sun Belt standings. So looking forward to what's coming up all during a very busy weekend. And if you want to stay connected, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms for interview clips from Crimson Drive, Hey Coach, as well as some courtside cam highlights and booth cam highlights from football. You can find all of it at UA_CTSN. It's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to our guest, Cory Reamer, for talking Alabama football, as well as Chris Stewart for his contributions talking men's basketball and football as well. Thank you to Ethan Carabin. He produced both courtside cams last night here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network social media platforms, and he put this show together, Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. For all of us with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this has been Roger Hoover. Thank you so much for watching this show. We look forward to seeing you not only back here for Crimson Drive on Thursday, but for women's basketball, men's basketball, football, all coming up this week. It's all happening, and we're glad you're with us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide, everyone.